Ms. Fisher?
Here.
Mrs. Metzler?
Here.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Here.
And Mrs. Ortiz?
Present. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Move.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes. Are we in compliance?
Yes, we are.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Correspondence?
Yes, I received a few communications since our last meeting that were either addressed or directed to the appropriate personnel to address.
Mr. Lillie?
I received 2 letters, one addressed to the property owner from the city of Geneva, just letting us know about a variance request. It really doesn't have a whole lot to do with the high school here, but it's over in Woodridge. It's on the corner of Red Oak and Woodridge, and somebody was constructing an accessory structure 3 feet from the property line, and it was supposed to be a 6-foot minimum. So, you know, asking if we want to attend the meeting, but we normally would not in this case. And then another piece, communication from Ohio Electricity Litigation to the Geneva Board of Education. As a settlement class member, we received a check for $4,921.64 from the net settlement fund having to do with a court case Smith versus First Energy Corp. And this is all spans from the House Bill 6 fiasco and householder. And so this is a settlement that I believe if you read in the newspaper, individuals, homeowners would be receiving this as well. Commercial amounts we would see. So this is our amount of
How
that.
much is it?
$4,921.64.
Did we actually already receive the check, or is that just notification
This
that
is
it's
a
coming?
copy of the check.
Okay.
It's
Thank you.
already been deposited.
Okay.
Ooh.
Has it cleared?
Yeah.
Has it cleared? A motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call? Or discussion, I guess? Roll call?
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
And Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
A motion to approve the treasurer's financial report?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
I do want to share a couple quick notes here, just reflected in that are where did you go? We received our oh, here it is. No, we don't have it. We received our second half settlement recently. It won't be reflected in your financial report as it came in on August 11th. And I just wanted to note that it was 5.328% higher than the second half settlement last year. For the year, the second half settlement was 5.37% higher than last year's second half settlement. Compared to the first half, which was about 5.3%. This is kind of odd. It's a little larger than would be expected. This is a triennial update year 2023, so we would expect to see a larger increase in 2024 collections. So I'm a little bit surprised by that. What is reflected in your financial report is the what I would call the third quarter, actually the second quarter, received in July though, our third quarter school district income tax. That was 5.4% more than the same distribution received last year. And so far through 3 quarters of 2023 compared to the first 3 quarters of 2022, that's 6.36% more than what it was last year. So it's still growing. Okay.
Any other discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
And Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
A motion to approve the invoices.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
And Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
That brings us to informational items.
You see a donation of a football equipment trailer valued at $5,000. Now that's apparently, the trailer cost $4,400, and the rest of that would be graphics from the Geneva Gridiron Club to the district. I also want to report back to the board, as you've been asking, we finally posted items for auction on public surplus. We auctioned off 10 items, and we will be receiving $1,700.13. There are a number of small items, but the big things posted on there were the 2 buses. So the bus that has to be towed off the lot, towed off either way, as a trade-in or through this auction. The trade-in value that we were getting from Rush Bus Center was $500. The auction netted us $1,075. So we sold that through auction. We're still waiting for the gentleman. He's paid, but he hasn't picked it up yet. The other bus, which Rush Bus Center was going to give us $2,000 in trade-in, only garnered $1,610. So we are arranging that trade-in now with Rush Bus Center. The next biggest item was $175.49 for some miscellaneous wires and adapters and parts, just a lot of small things. But there, I guess the other, access encoders, a lot of core duo pieces, a lot of LCD monitors, 7 HP core dual laptops, a lot of Pentium 4 pieces, smart slates, WS200, dust collector that was replaced, I think, at the middle school, sold for $100. Miscellaneous, no, that was not sold, and 2 aluminum light poles sold. So again, we received $1,713, better than we, in most cases, if we called a scrap person here, they would not charge us to pick it up, but they also might not give us any money.
So was this auction, was it in person? Did people come here to a site, or
No,
did they do it all online?
no, this is an auction site called Public Surplus. We talked about this about 2 years ago, but Mr. Brigard had not had a chance to actually put something on the auction site. So it's a complete online auction. And so there's people that could be bidding. Actually, the gentleman that purchased the bus, I believe their truck company is in Chicago, Illinois. So people can bid on these from all over, and we will be posting, this was our first test to see how it did, and I think based on what we got from the bus, every time we have trade-ins, we will, before those buses are delivered, we will put those buses on and see if we can get more than the trade-in value. And he has a place to go with scrap and basically everything that we need to sell, and this meets our Ohio Revised Code requirement to auction. And we can also put a link every time we post an auction on our district website, make sure that it's available if somebody wants something locally.
Kevin, I'm sorry, I may have misunderstood. So you said the auction got, we received $1,700.13.
Total for 10 items, for 10 lots or items, 10 different things.
But that included 2 buses, one of which we received $1,075?
Right.
And the other?
The other
1,000
bus we're not auctioning because the
Oh,
auction
got
amount
it.
was less than the trade-in value of
okay.
$2,000 that we can get from Rush.
So the 1610 is the other bus that we're still waiting on those funds?
Well, we're still waiting on the funds. But these are sold and they're paid.
Okay.
And the money is sitting at Public Surplus.
Okay,
And they
okay.
clear that out, we'll receive it early September.
Okay,
The auction had just closed at the end of July. They received most of the payments in August. They clear that out monthly and send it to us.
okay,
The one bus we will not be doing through auction. The 1,075 is part of that 1,713.
Okay.
So you can see the other
Yep.
9 items were,
Yep.
were on average less than $100.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Is that all for
That's it.
information? All right, that brings us to the legislative report.
Did you write that down?
Good evening, everybody. So I did, as per someone's request last month, provided a paper, a hard copy, in addition to what I'm reading. So I have no updates to that. So exactly what my report is what's in the handout. So and part of that is they were in recess, so not much business is going on, so a short report this time. The other thing I wanted to tell you is that the updates that I get come to me on Fridays. So I'll get one this Friday, which would technically still be August, but it won't be on until my September report. Does that make sense? I don't find out the information until after the board meeting. So I'll put that at the front end of the next report. Okay, so the Ohio Department of Education released information and a timeline for the transition of roles and responsibilities from ODE to the Department of Education and Workforce, the DEW. The State Board of Education and ODE has developed a transition plan. DEW is to be a cabinet-level agency with a director who is appointed by the governor. The SBOE will still exist and retain some responsibilities, which will include finding and confirming a new superintendent of public instruction. The new superintendent's role will be defined within the different responsibilities due to the regulatory shift. Governor DeWine announced that the state would be using $26 million, sorry, it says dollars twice, I apologize, from the governor's emergency education relief dollars. And those monies will fund tutoring services at no cost to schools and districts. We just have to apply. Districts and schools may apply for tutoring services from 6 approved vendors for this coming school year. So there's that, there's money for that. And then that's it. I put all the list of your elected officials, how you can get a hold of them. If you have any concerns about pending legislation, that's who you should tell. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. The ATEC report?
Yes. The Youth Opportunities Group has moved into their new location, which is on West Avenue in Ashtabula. They held their open house on August 14th, and it is a former church that they have renovated for their purposes. A new storybook trail is open at the Andover Public Library. ATEC students from the Visual Design and Imaging Department designed the entrance sign, while the Career Tech Exploration students cut out the letters and animals, and the Carpentry Department assembled the sign. So this was another successful collaboration here. And if you get the the Star Beacon, the front page today had a picture about the opening of Storybook Trail. Unfortunately, they took a picture of the commissioners, which you see all the time, and they did not take a picture of the entrance sign, which I think would have been much prettier.
No offense, commissioners.
Just, yeah, let me run that paper. Over 250 students attended Information Day on August 6th. And the first day of school is going to be this coming Monday. And I've been invited to attend the opening session of Staff Day tomorrow morning. We were told to bring our smartphones so we can participate in the ATEC trivia quiz. The next board meeting is this coming Monday. That's it.
Thank you. That brings us to the administrative reports.
Yes, we will begin this evening with Mrs. Porcello.
I still don't understand this rotation.
All right, good evening. I'm going to start with at the elementary schools, all three, Cork, GPS, and Austinburg, as well as at GMS, we have new sensory spaces. They haven't been delivered to anywhere except for GPS right now. We're waiting to have them moved. But they include a really cool, cozy house, 8x8, soft foam padding that you can go inside of, has a removable roof, weighted blankets, bubble tubes, light cubes that I played with for a long time, bean bags, gel floor tiles, which I think every time we walk in there we have to step on all of them, and a menagerie of handheld fidgets for these sensory spaces, giving our kids a safe place to go to re-regulate themselves. In July, we had a group of teachers that, from all 3 of the elementary schools, that completed a 3-day introductory course to the Wilson Reading System. That's a Tier 3 program that's focused on structured literacy, using systematic, explicit, and intensive instruction in phonics, spelling, writing, vocabulary, reading fluency, and comprehension. And it's also accredited by the International Dyslexia Association, which is huge with all of our new dyslexia rules that are coming out. From that 3-day course, we have a number of teachers and an administrator that are going to go through the year-long practicum to become Wilson Level 1 certified. Awesome program, I've completed it. They're gonna be trained to work with students that are struggling in reading and writing, in small groups, one-on-one, whatever they need, and they'll gain a solid understanding of Wilson Reading System, which also includes foundations, which we have at all of the elementary schools, just words, and then they'll be able to also promote those literacy programs to their peers, since they are available in our schools. On the board agenda tonight, you will see an SNA and a 504 handbook. Those were created to put procedures that we use in writing, so that we can continue to follow them, and we have them in writing in case there's any questions. The 504 handbook is going to be provided to all staff members before the school year starts, as well as hard copies being placed in each of the offices where we do our meetings for 504s. And the SNA handbook is going to be gone over with the SNAs on August 28th, when we have our time on that day. Beyond that, I want to thank the custodial and the maintenance staff. I've been in 4 of the 5 buildings in the district, with the exception of Cork, and they look amazing. I know. Haven't had a reason to go over there. They look amazing. They've been working really hard getting things divvied out to people with all of the new flexible seating that's arriving, and polishing up those floors, cleaning the walls. I see people washing walls like my grandma did. And they look good, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Riley?
Good evening, everyone. For the board, I had given you in your Board of Education packet a kind of a detailed listing of state test scores, from comparing our results from this year to last year, also from kind of a longitudinal look over the last 3 or 4 years, kind of see where we're at, also to kind of see how we had stood up against the state and things like that. So I'm just going to kind of hit a couple of highlights or things that jumped out at me as strengths and areas of need that we need to look towards, kind of keeping the work towards moving forward. Last year, of the 20 indicators, 9 of them we were above the state average, which is really good. The year before, we were 10 above the state average, so we're kind of hovering right around that point there. We've had, for 2 consecutive years, 8th grade ELA, Algebra 1, Geometry, 5th grade Science, Bio, and Biology and History have been consistently above state average. So that's really good. They're doing well on that end. And the indicators also reflect that over the past 3 years, and it indicates that algebra, 5th grade math, 4th math, 3rd grade math, 3rd ELA, 4th ELA, 8th ELA, history, and government have all continually gone up, which is a nice trend. Some of the test scores, if you look at them historically over the last 3 or 4 years, they're kind of moving up and down a little bit, or maybe they move straight and they're not moving a whole lot, but those particular test scores, they consistently moved up. So kudos to the staff moving through on that end. Some content standards of notable success over the years. I kind of indicated that in math, for geometry, probability, all 3 years was noted as number strength. Algebra was statistics, and geometry for math down in the 3rd grade level was a focus. Reading informational text is a strength in our district, and in social studies skills and documents was a success, along with American government had the Ohio policy economies standpoint. But on the flip side of it, the good with the bad, which isn't really bad at all. The 2023 below state average, we had 7 indicators that were below the state average. And I did include a chart with you that indicated the tests that were above state average, below state average, are very similar to where they were at. Those indicators that have been kind of on a downward trend or stagnant over the past 3 years, there's 6 indicators. It's in 6th grade math, 7th math, and 8th grade math, 6th and 7th ELA, and 5th grade science. So those are some areas that we kind of want to look towards and maybe see what's kind of going on along that end. And I think one of our aspects this year is we're going to try to have our staff members work kind of across grade levels and across disciplines to kind of see what may be going on, because there's a lot of success in a lot of different buildings, and I think the staff can share their ideas amongst one another, and I think that would help us kind of move forward along the way. But I did include also the chart that I kind of referenced earlier on. So kind of on my end, the one thing that kind of jumped out at me, I think we always want the state scores to keep going up here in this district and every other district. We're still coming out of that pandemic. I think we're going to feel the challenges of our students who have learning loss for the next few years. We can keep throwing support with them, which we do. We have interventions that are going on. We get extra resources, extra time. It's when you come out of a pandemic, nobody's really experienced this yet. So I think we're doing a very good job as a district moving forward. I think we'll just continue to doing what we're doing and kind of look for ways ways to improve along the way. And finally, on my end, just the curriculum and textbook adoption. As a reminder, the K-5 social studies adoption occurred this school year, so they'll be implementing those materials. Moving through this school year, the ELA and science in grades 6 through 12 will also be looked at. Hopefully we'll get some resources by the end of the school year. And I guess finally on my end, we do have a lot of staff, district-wide, classified, certified administratively. I wish them all nothing but the best. I think they've all been great hires. Some of them are just going into new positions, but I think that we're going to do really good this year. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Riley.
Thanks, Mr. Riley.
Mrs. Brzenko?
Good evening. One thing I want to talk about is the staff changes. As you see on the list, we have a lot of staff changes this year, me being one of them. So I want to say thank you to everyone that's been showing up at the building, helping me with the transition. I talked to Mary Allison, I've talked to the kindergarten teachers, whatever I need, I'm able to at least communicate with them, and they're able to help me, so I appreciate that. So here's a list of staff changes for you to peruse. Also, some of the summer highlights. I'm sorry, did you?
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I pulled up the Austinburg one.
Oh, okay.
I apologize.
All right. Some of the summer highlights, we did personalized learning. I did the book study at Osterberg and at GPS. We have a plethora of materials that came in, and poor Alicia, she's trying to keep track of them, and we're trying to match up invoices and make sure that things aren't damaged, as you know. The teachers ordered some really great things. I've been walking in the classrooms, and I'm actually sitting in them myself. So I look forward to taking a break from maybe the chaos in the office and going in and seeing some of those great things. Cheryl's been working hard on the floors. The machine broke, but she's still trudging on with something else that she found. So we're working on that. The district posters that we ordered will be displayed before open house, so that'll be nice to see them when you walk in, along with our book vending machine that is filled. When my kids come to the building, they are constantly putting in coins to make sure that it works, and then refilling it because they don't want a problem if a student tries to put in the coin and it doesn't fall. So upcoming events, we have our open house on August 28th. It is from 4 to 5 o'clock, and tentatively at 5 o'clock is the Safe Routes to School meeting. I have not heard back from Mr. Griffiths about that, but tentatively the meeting will follow that in the library. So I'm looking forward to that. And I would just like to do a big shout out to Cheryl Kinney, Ruth, Karen, Dave, Jared, Scott, for all their hard work and getting the building and areas ready. And I can call them at any time, and they're just coming over to help me try to find my way. I'm asking questions about things in the building, so I appreciate everyone's time. I'd also like to thank, I know they're not here, but my family for helping me make the transition. There's been many drives back and forth from Osterberg to GPS. My son and daughter deliver personalized learning stuff, books, whatever they can do to help lighten the load for Cheryl and Ruth. And as you see, Caroline now is on here too. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate everyone's support on my transition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
Mr. Markajon?
Thank you, Mrs. Brzenko. I'd like to share with you that the hardworking ladies at Ostenburg Elementary have done an amazing job getting the building ready for the school year. They are hardworking women, and they really have the building looking great. So thank you to Cindy Peck and Christina Cross at Ostenburg, and thank you to all of our custodians and housekeepers for all of their hard work that they've put in this summer to get us ready for the school year. I'd like to thank Mrs. Brzenko, who has been so kind and generous with her time and patience, trying to get me up to speed with all the amazing things that she and her staff have put together for the upcoming year, including a wheelchair swing, water bottle filling stations, a STEM lab, and we have a book vending machine as well. These are just a few of the many topics Mrs. Brzenko and I have discussed over the last few weeks. Sincere thanks for all she has done for Ostenburg Elementary and all the people she has impacted there. We're going to have two new teachers and a new nurse coming. Miss Ashley Gillette will be coming, and she'll be sharing time at Ostenburg and GHS. Nikki Nelson is coming from Cork over to Ostenburg, and Karen Weaver's on the agenda tonight to be hired as a Title I tutor. I'd like to thank everybody that helped me make the transition over to Ostenburg. Mrs. Doherty and Mrs. Brzenko have promised to hold my hands through my first year of elementary school. And I'd like to say best wishes to Laura Jones as she will be moving on. She will be missed after all of her years of service to our students' wellness and happiness. So best of wishes to Laura Jones. She'll be missed. And good luck to all of our new administrators that we have here. They've been working really hard. So it'll be nice to go ahead and see them in their roles this year. So congratulations to those new folks as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
Mrs. Doherty?
Just slightly.
So happy I'm not going anywhere. Yes, I'm stuck back. I'm sorry. Those of you at Cork, Mrs. Bordeaux, you're stuck with me. So we'll make it a good year, though, we do. And we do have a table for you, so that's good. So again, I'm repeating everything they said. It's just been a summer of our staff, our custodial staff, our housekeeping, so Teresa Grimmett, Brenda Cork, and Tammy Ritchie's secretary. They've been checking in, assembling. Teachers have brought family members in to assemble all of our new flexible seating as a result of our personalized learning. Everybody is so excited. I did include some pictures on the back of some of the classrooms that are set up. It really looks nice. Different, I mean, we have to get used to it, but different. And we'll be having to inform our parents as well, but we are excited for that. Plus, they also had to do their normal duties and then move a bunch of furniture out as well. So again, somebody mentioned Dave and Scott. They've been nothing but helpful for everything and right there for us. So it's been exciting. We did have a lot of teachers involved in the personalized learning book study, so that was nice to see as well. So we have a lot of items, and I don't know how Alicia did it, but she did it, and that's a lot to get organized and take care of. So she's something else. We also and we want to make sure we have adequate staff to start the year. We have one intervention tutor. I'll introduce her next month coming in. And we do have an additional first grade teacher. We didn't hire Elizabeth Kostkar. She's been getting into her room and excited about coming over to Cork. And then Mrs. Porcello, thank you so much for that training, the Wilson training. I put 4, I think it was 4 teachers in Cork. And myself, it was one, I have to say, of the best PD sessions I've ever had. And everybody is so excited to get started because we do have a big project ahead of us. But that's all they're talking about. And it really was worthwhile and made some sense, and it really is focusing on our 4th grade, 5th grade students. We always seem to be focusing on our K-3, but really we're looking at those students that might be dyslexic or need that extra help and going back to the basics with them and enhancing our title programs too with them. So it was worthwhile, and we learned a lot. Our presenter was wonderful as well, so I do want to thank you for that. It was nice of you to put, that was a lot to put together, I know. So, and we do have our book vending machine, and I had to call Mrs. Brzenko to ask her how I put the books. There wasn't any explanation on how to put the books in, but it looks really neat. So it's nice in there, and so we have books in, making sure all grade levels, and I'm happy with the books that I ordered because I think the kids, it'll motivate them too. But I did joke with somebody today, I said we should put some snacks in there too, both books and snacks. But, so thank you for that because it's something different, it's exciting. A lot of different things this year, that's the theme for this year is different, I think. So we're gonna make it work. We're all excited about it. And of course the teachers have been in, they're in all the time doing their wonderful preparations, and I just give them so much credit, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mrs. Doherty, please thank the 12 teachers that participated in the personalized learning, the book study that were able to help you get that other type of
And that's
furniture in the
Corks. I
classroom.
mean, many more did, but yeah, we had very good discussion. Actually, Mrs. Ramsey's doing hers now because she had some issues over the summer, so her and I have been meeting and talking, and we're looking at videos and going over the book, and it's good. We learned a lot, so it was a summer of learning, I guess, for us. So
Very
yeah,
good.
I will thank them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Poland?
She told me just to say ditto. My name's Kent Poland, the new principal at the middle school. I'm excited to be here. This is an exciting time of year. Anytime school gets ready, a lot of fun things happening. You start seeing athletes around, the band's playing, workers are working a lot, and it's just like everyone else said, our staff is working great to get the school ready for the school year. We're excited about that. We have new staff members. Myself, I'm new. Christine Carnett is my new assistant over here. We have Emily Bobain. She's our ELA person in the 7th grade. Emily Foltz, band teacher. She's actually at the building right now setting up her room when I left. And then we have Jennifer Schaefer, intervention specialist, and Sherry Hines, a classroom aide for the autism units through the ESC. And Kim Knepp is our intervention specialist for Happy Hearts unit. I'd like to welcome all of them. Our middle school summer school ended last Friday. I was just reading this and realized we wrote this last week. And then summer school for elementary school is this week, and they're finishing up this Friday. Athletics, like I said earlier, it's great to see them on the courts, fields, getting ready for the season. Exciting time, and want to wish our student athletes the best of luck as they represent Geneva academically and athletically. And with our upcoming events, we have the 6th grade laptop distribution on August 22nd, 9 to 11, 1 to 3, and 5 to 7. Wednesday the 23rd, we have 6th grade orientation open house from 6 to 7. And Thursday the 24th, we have the 7th and 8th grade schedule pickup from 9 to 11. And they have an open house schedule pickup 6 to 7 the same night on the 24th. Again, I just want to thank everybody for answering all the questions Christine and I have put forth, and it's great to be part of this community. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. King?
Is this where I come on down and get my new washer? Or?
Yes.
The price is right.
Yeah, exactly.
If
All
you
right.
can bid lower than the, yeah.
Okay, so far the current administrators have blown the 2-minute window. Ken, it was under the 2-minute window, and I was told 2 minutes or less, so here I go. So again, ditto. Thank you to everyone who has made this transition for myself and Mr. Chenoweth in the back, who is going to be helping us out with video camera for the board meetings. It's been a phenomenal entry to the Geneva community. Like I said when I spoke before, I've had family in and out of Geneva for a very long time, and the community is everything that was ever shared with me. Just very outgoing, very embracing and kind. So thank you for that. The new staff for the high school, you've met them through the board meetings, but just as a quick reminder, Anna Brown is the new band director. Jennifer Fultz will be our assistant. She is the middle school band director. Ashley Gillette as our new school nurse, and Amanda Steiger to our English department. We too have flexible seating, but I really want some of these like jelly pads that she was talking about, because sometimes we don't get the fun things the elementaries do. But we will have some pictures of flexible seating shortly. We are still in the process of putting some of them together, and many of our teachers are engaged in that process as we speak. I did put some pictures on Twitter today of our painted parking lot spaces. Myself, Chef Chenoweth in the back. We had a cookout for those who were painting. If I cooked, we'd be visiting students in the hospital. He cooked, saved our lives. Big shout out to Dr. Hrina-Treharn. She was encouraging the kids to come up and eat. Some of them were like, I'm not really that hungry, but then when she said, we really have food for you, they actually came and got food. So we appreciate her doing the hard work of drumming up business. So those pictures are on Twitter. And last but not least, this evening is the community fall sports rally. It was supposed to be Saturday, but of course, the storm and the tornado watch, et cetera, canceled that. So that is going on this evening. I'm hoping to get some pictures from that sent to me, and I will post those on Twitter as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Under 2 minutes.
His Twitter page. Can you get me that? Did you still have that Memorial Field?
He likes that in that letter, so it probably pops up.
That band thing?
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
Thank
Sports
you.
rally. Fall sports rally.
Yeah.
Where is it? Field, right?
Thank you. Yep, thank you. So I first wanted to start by following up from last month. I reached out to Mrs. Mather to follow up on some questions that arose at the board meeting last month regarding the choir trip. So just to report out on that, the insurance cost, she said, is approximately $126 a person. It's dependent upon the finalized cost of the trip, and once they can secure the flights for that, then that will be adjusted accordingly. Other than that, she noted that on the previous trip to Italy, there were 3 staff members and 3 parents, so there were 6 chaperones in total, giving it a ratio of 6-to-1 in regards to students and to chaperones. And that the last trip had 36 students who went on that trip. So again, I just wanted to share that because those were some questions that came up at the last board meeting. Also, just wanted to comment, due to some of the comments, and Mr. King kind of briefly touched upon this as well, that I had seen on social media. I just wanted to clarify that the district has nothing to do with the scheduling, cancellation, or rescheduling of the community parade. I know that both Mr. King and I certainly wanted to attend that, but that is completely run by the Gridiron, and this was the best night that they said to reschedule it. So I too hope that we get pictures, and we will certainly share those out on our social media pages. Just to let the community know, it was brought to our attention that there is a deer stand very near to the cross-country course that was put in. So I have been working with ODNR to get that removed. And it should be removed sometime this week so that it is safe and not in close proximity to people who may be choosing to walk on that pathway, or certainly our students who are running. A quick update on our food service equipment grant that Mrs. Jones provided. The middle school cooler was delivered last week. The dishwasher at GPS is scheduled to get delivered this week and be installed, and then the one at Austenburg is scheduled to be installed next week. I would like to thank our administrators who have been planning for the upcoming school year. We met in June. We most recently attended a countywide administrative conference at the beginning of this month, and we are meeting again next week to finish up our planning. And I think you could tell from their reports, we are all very excited about the start of the school year. I too would like to thank and recognize our housekeepers, custodians, maintenance staff for all of their work over the summer. Obviously, the buildings are getting close to being finished, and we know it would not be possible without all of their hard work. So I think the buildings look wonderful. Moving on to the start of the year, I know that some of the events were talked about by each building principal, but I do encourage you to consult our 23-24 important dates and events document. It can be found on our district website under the Parent and Student Resources tab. Also be on the lookout next week. Our first day signs that we started a couple years ago will pop up next week. So just as a reminder, simply download the appropriate sign, take a picture, and email it to me, putting first day pick in the subject line, and we will get those posted on social media as we have the past few years. On August 28th and 9th, we will have our opening days for staff. So there will be a variety of presenters and topics covered, as well as training. Teachers will be getting professional development on teacher-based teams, social emotional learning and resources, personalized learning, which you've heard a lot about as well as gifted students, and our testing results will be gone over with them. Just as a reminder, school starts on August 30th for students in grades 1 through 12, September 1st for kindergarten, and September 5th for preschool. And just to report out, our enrollment numbers in comparison of last year to this year are pretty much the same. Every day I talk to Mrs. Horvath, and she gives me a new number because it's that time of year where she's getting bombarded with enrollment. So we are just under 2,200 as we were at the start of last school year. Some returning items this year, again, I mentioned our first day signs, our Soaring Eagles program, as well as our Soaring Above that we started last spring, that recognition. Some new items for this year will be next month at the board meeting, we will be rolling out our district's 3-year strategic plan, staff recognition, which we will be revealing soon. Don't want to give away any hints about that. And certainly as you enter the buildings this year, please stop and take a look at the Portrait of a Graduate banners that are hung in each of the buildings. If you came in, you may have noticed them hung literally on the opposite side of the wall, the curtains there in the cafeteria here at the high school. And then, as was mentioned, each of our 4 Title I buildings all have the book vending machines that we are very excited about. And I can't wait for students to get books in their hands for free, and they will certainly be a part of our Soaring Eagle and PBIS programs.
Okay. I recommend that the board approve the enclosed bus stop locations and time schedules.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just again, mention this is required per Ohio Administrative Code 3301-8313.
Roll call?
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
And Mrs. Milliken Dixon.
Yes.
I recommend that the board approve the enclosed resolution authorization to purchase from school bus bids received by Ohio Schools Council.
I'll move.
Second.
Discussion?
I have a few comments. So the recommendation is to purchase 6 new buses, which would take the oldest bus in our fleet from 2005 to 2010. We were told that we would have these if we purchased them by the end of the calendar year. These are 2024 buses, and therefore it would provide a savings to us of between $72,000 and $90,000 if we purchase them. They are available, and they're kind of holding them for us pending how the board decides to vote this evening. If we don't take advantage of those, we would not only be paying more, but we wouldn't get them for a full year. So if you recall with the 2 that we just got in, it took quite some time to get those.
We're also going to mention that you
Sure, yes. This would definitely be out of our ESSER funds.
Any other discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes. I recommend that the board waive the first reading and adopt the following new revised policies due to technical changes.
I'll move.
Second?
I'd just like to note that the only changes in these policies is a name change or a position transition. Any other discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
And Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
I recommend that the board approve the enclosed employee handbook.
So moved?
Second.
Discussion?
I just have a quick question. I'm sorry, Dr. Treharn. Maybe you're going to answer this. Are there changes to it?
The only changes are the change in date to reflect the current school year, and then the change of the compliance officer.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Roll call?
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
And Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
I recommend that the board approve the enclosed SNA handbook.
So moved?
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, I have a question, although I think it got answered already. Kelly talked about it a little bit. So these are procedures that the SNAs were already doing, and now we're just documenting them to make sure that they stay consistent. That's the reason for the new handbook, right? So, that doesn't have anything to do with being in the middle of a contract or anything like that? Like it doesn't, none of those things were already outlined in the contract, I guess, if it's, no? Okay, it just seems to me that, I don't know, if we get in the middle of a contract, add in new job requirements, but it's not job requirements? Okay.
I mean, it's no different than any of the other handbooks that, we've adopted or
Yeah.
put on.
So how were these procedures being passed down to new employees prior to this handbook? I guess is my question. What were we doing in its absence?
You may want to ask Ms. Martello.
How did new SNAs learn the procedures, Okay, so we've taken all those things that everybody already knows and they're already doing and just outlined them on paper. That's all I want to know. Thank you.
Roll call?
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
And Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
I recommend that the board approve the enclosed 504 handbook.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Same question. This is the same thing? 504 procedures were just sort of passed down word of mouth. Now they're outlined on a piece of paper. Got it. Thank you.
Roll call?
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
And Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
I recommend that the board approve the enclosed student parent device handbook.
So move.
Second?
So to note, there was a $1 increase from the Worth Group in the device handbook. Is that the only real change?
Yes, so this handbook is the one that outlines the optional technology plan for parents that is included in there. That's the part that has been updated or changed from last year to this year. As Mrs. Ortiz noted, last year the cost was $22. We do this through the Worth Group is the name of the company. It is $23. It did go up $1 this year. And I will just also note that the date for the inspection, so these are for students in 6th through 12th grade that take their devices home. The 6th grade devices are already inspected before they get passed out to the 6th graders. But parents of students in grades 7 through 12 who would like to purchase the optional technology plan will need to bring the devices in for an inspection prior to purchasing that optional insurance plan. And those dates are August 28th from 5 to 7 in the middle school aux gym, or August 29th from 1 to 3 in the high school cafeteria. and Mr. Burgard and/or other administrators would be there to do the inspections, much like happened last year, same things last year, except the dollar increase.
I just have one question concerning the device and the handbook. Do we offer anything to parents or caregivers of students on how to use the devices? Meaning a child, a sixth grade child may know how to get on a logbook or get on a Chromebook and do their homework and stuff like that, but may have a parent that's not familiar with the Chromebook or the computer or Google or anything like that. So does the school district as a whole offer a one-time, not a refresher course, but an initiation on how to work with the computer platform?
We do not. However, one of the things that we talked about in our administrative team planning this summer is that we recognize through some of the conversations in the strategic plan meetings that we are looking to implement a technology night quarterly to hit on some of these things that we want parents and or guardians to be familiar with.
Thank you.
Roll call?
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes. I recommend approval of the enclosed school resource officer memorandum of understanding.
I'll
So
move.
moved. Second?
Discussion?
This is just a change in dates from last year's to this year.
Roll call?
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
And Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
I recommend approval of the enclosed resolution implementing a reduction in force of certain teaching positions.
I'll move.
Second?
So just to clarify, this does not displace any current employees. These positions are not filled. What else needs to be mentioned about that? Is that?
Yeah, just, again, it does not impact any current employee contracts.
Any other discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
And Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
I recommend approval of the enclosed resolution to enter into an agreement for participation in the Ashtabula County Technical and Career Campus Business Advisory Council.
I'll move.
Second.
Did you want to clarify?
So each district is required to be a part of a business advisory council. Last year, the Ashtabula County ESC led and facilitated that for us. ATEC is serving that in that capacity this year. So last year, the Business Advisory Council approved the move from the ESC to ATEC to represent all the schools in Ashtabula County.
And what's our role then, Dr. Treharn?
Our role? So I attend the business advisory meetings, or business advisory council meetings, I should say, with any other superintendent from the county that would like to attend those, business members that want to attend those. And so we meet, but the ATEC, the superintendent from ATEC, Mr. Wadega, sort of runs and facilitates those and takes care of like the compliance and any paperwork or reporting that needs to be done.
All right, thank you.
Roll call?
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
And Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
I recommend approval of the enclosed resolution approving design phase submissions and GMP amendment number 1.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes. I've written out some remarks here that might help explain what's happening. For the records, these remarks are mine alone. I'm speaking as a board member, but not for the board. I have not shared them with anyone else, and I'm presenting this in an attempt to provide some history about this project and hopefully to preemptively answer some questions and save time. In the 2000s, the state had a plan to upgrade Ohio schools. With community assistance, they contributed to the building of schools all over the state. Geneva was able to take advantage of this program, and we built the 5 schools that we now use. At this time, for reasons I don't know, the decision was made not to build a new administrative building, even though it fell under the umbrella of permissible constructions. We were the owners of the house on Eagle Street that was being used as an administrative center, and it was located beside 2 of the old schools. In 2013, the house at 135 Eagle was sold, and we had 5 years of free occupancy as part of the deal. And then in 2018, when our 5 years were up, we had no administrative building, so we signed a 5-year lease, this time starting at $15,000 a year and increasing 2% compounded. So by the end of the lease, we were paying $16,236 for the final year. This year, the lease was up this past April, and once again, we had nowhere else to go. So we negotiated another lease. This time it's $7,500 per quarter, or $36,667 that extends us to the end of June of '24, or it's a 15-month lease. The owners of the building have also told us they intend to sell the building, and what was our timetable for getting out. At that time, it looked like we could be out by the June of '24, which is why the lease is extended to that date. This may once again need to be negotiated. I can't speak as to what was done prior to my joining the board in January of 2016. However, I do know action was taken to get a plan for the house on the hill. I have heard several trips were made to inspect existing buildings in the area that could be used, and that there was even a scrapbook detailing these inspections. One of the first work sections I attended after I was elected to the school board in 2016 concerned the possible conversion of the house on the hill into an administrative building. Drawings had been done of what would have to happen to turn it into what we needed. The cost at that time was estimated to be slightly over $1 million due to the small size of the house and the addition that would have to be built. The lack of space at the top of the hill meant that there would be a parking lot at the base of the hill behind the house, and the fact that it would be a public building meant that we would be required to bring it up to code for public buildings. Among other things, there would be need to firewalls, electrical upgrades, and an elevator system to meet ADA requirements. I also know that the empty Key Bank building was looked at, as was Northwest Bank building. Further serious discussion was halted by other business. During the next couple of years, we had to get a tax levy passed just to keep the schools open. We had to deal with the Spire tax issue, and we underwent a fiscal audit by the state of Ohio because of our precarious financial position caused by no levy being passed. Even though we eventually got the levy, it was too late to prevent the heartbreaking cuts to staff, sports, extracurricular activities, and busing. The time delay between passing the levy, collecting the tax, and then receiving the tax was too great to continue without these adjustments. School systems don't have credit cards to provide gap financing during times of crisis. Building a new administrative building at this time would have been a slap in the face of all of those who were making sacrifices, even though we were not permitted to spend these funds on anything else. Emotions were running high enough without adding fuel to that fire. Finally, the funds were coming in. We were able to return the buses to their routes, get our teachers back, reinstate extracurricular activities, and start to reinstate all that we had put aside. The band was back, concerts were back, as were the plays. Great buzz and excitement all around. Then came COVID. I think we all remember very well what that meant to each of us as individuals and to the community at large. After what seemed like an eternity, things finally started to come back, but it didn't return to normal. There was a new normal. I think we were all traumatized in a way. I never thought I'd see the equivalent of a medieval plague in my lifetime, with people dying way before their time, people ill for days, weeks, and sometimes months at a time, quarantining, the cancellation of things that make our life pleasant, like restaurants, movies, sporting events, and church services. And it seemed to go on forever. But finally, things opened up and we got back to business. The office on Eagle Street was inspected for fire safety and failed. Too many people, too many machines running, too many cracks in the walls and the ceilings, and I understand there was a toilet that was threatening to fall down into the basement. The media center was mentioned as one possibility. We had a plan drawn up to see if this was feasible. It would be cheaper and quicker than any other option. Somehow, the plan found its way out of our meeting room before we really had a chance to study and evaluate it. We were told in no uncertain terms that moving into the media center was not going to happen. Meetings were taken and we finally moved a few people into the media center so we could satisfy the fire officials. And that's where we still are. We set out to inspect a couple other places that were possibilities. We started at Pairings. We did a walkthrough with a contractor who then gave us a drawing that for what we had envisioned. The estimate was close to $1 million. Here again, we had to add on to the building, but since it was already a public building, we avoided the cost of upgrades. However, on the downside, the building was tucked away in a remote corner with a huge vacant lot. If there were homes or condos built there, we would be even further hidden in the corner. There was no opinion, and there was also the opinion that we did not want to purchase more property when we already had so much. So we moved on to the house on the hill and found that it was indeed much too small and very unprepared to be an office building. So we're still trying to find a viable use for that. And this brings us to the new building on the land adjacent to the high school. The building will be brick. It will match the existing structure. It will be approximately 5,000 square feet and it will house 12 employees. There will be a conference room and I imagine a room that will contain copiers and other office machineries. I can't give you exact dimensions, but I knew though that plans have been gone over repeatedly. The halls have been narrowed and feet have been shaved off here and there to come up with the most compact and economical building. The format will be individual offices rather than a bullpen style due to the confidential nature of the business being done there. There's payroll, insurance, issues and things such as that. It should come as no surprise that costs are escalating and labor is hard to find. It is estimated that construction material costs escalated 10% during the past 12 months, and that it will probably go up another 5 to 6% the next year, and labor cost is on the rise. There's also a shortage of laborers, as we have seen in local establishments like restaurants that we find closed during normal working hours. Workers are in short supply. Some items put out to bid had no response or only one, and it's hard to get competitive bids that way. As the city of Geneva has found out, getting construction done right now is very difficult. The city recently received an additional $3 million for the project on West Main Street. Just check out Facebook to find out what people think about that. They have already put out the bid 3 times with 0 responses. And now they're getting ready to try a 4th time, hoping that the additional funds may do the trick. So here we are. So this is just a reminder, I am speaking as a board member, but not for the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Do either of you have anything?
No, I'm good.
Mrs. Metzler?
No.
No? Mrs. Dixon?
No, I'm good.
You're good? Do you have anything else? Do you have anything? Okay.
Do we want Kevin to explain where the money for the building is coming from?
Do you want to?
I think Mrs. Fisher just did a nice job, but yeah.
Well, I mean, I think we've talked about this before. The money is left over from our bond issue. It's called an excess ELP credit. It's money that the state allowed us to keep because the amount that they approved for the high school as credible expenditures was greater than our local share, so we were able to keep the difference. It was 2.5 million originally, but we spent some of that money on a couple rounds of Chromebooks and carts. So we had about 2.1 million when this all began. And it can only be used according to the original language that was in the bond issue, which was to construct this high school, furnish this high school and so on, or to construct any other school building or pay debt on a school building. So that means it can be used for a board office. So it is capital project funds and capital project funds only.
And leftover funds from when they built the new high school.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
I think they know that they're here. Does anybody have any other questions? Are you good?
I'm good.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
And Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
I recommend that the board approve the enclosed agreement with community counseling.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I want to thank the involved parties. Dr. Treharn, thank you for making this happen. I know this is important to our students and to our counseling staff that we already have for that extra support, so I want to thank you.
Roll call?
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes. I recommend the board approve the following student as having met the requirements for early graduation.
I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
And Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
I recommend that those who attended the Wilson Learning Training and obtained their Wilson Level 1 certification be paid a stipend of $35 for training.
I'll move.
Second.
Discussion?
How many of them?
Yeah, how many were there? That was my question too, Mr. Arndt.
So there were 11 or 14, Mrs. Porcello.
So this $35 an hour, that's for
This
what
is-
they already did and what they'll do in the future?
This would be for the 7 that are going through the entire process.
Not for the ones that already did part of it?
Well, those 7 did the first part.
Oh. No, I mean, in addition to them, there were 4, how many? Did you say 13? 13 total took the original, so are they getting that $35 an hour?
Well, they won't have their Level 1 certification.
Right.
Oh, so that's my question. Only those who complete the whole thing will get paid for any of it, correct?
Yes.
Anyone else? Roll call?
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
And Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
I recommend the following personnel actions for the 23-24 contract year.
I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
And Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
I recommend the following volunteer coaches for the 23-24 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes. The board will hold an executive session for the purposes of considering the discipline of a public employee or official or the investigation of complaints against a public employee or official.
Move.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
And Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
We may be returning with action.
You will be.
We will be, we will be returning with action after
We
the
need to take
executive
all this.
session.
Hey, you taking all this?
Where are we going?
Are we going to the media center? Okay. Is Megan here?